Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it. I had always believed that family was sacred, that blood was an unbreakable bond. But as I stepped into my grandfather's empty house that evening, the air thick with dust and silence, I felt the first crack in that belief. The house had been left to me, my name written clearly in my grandfather's will. Yet, just yesterday, I received a letter stating it had been sold. Sold, without my knowledge, without my consent. My fingers trembled as I gripped the doorknob. The old wooden panels creaked beneath my steps, the scent of aged books and worn leather filling my lungs. This place held decades of memories, holidays spent by the crackling fireplace, my grandfather's quiet laughter, the stories he used to tell about the house's history. Now it was all gone. I made my way to his study, my pulse hammering in my ears. My mother, Liliana, and my brother, Kaden, had assured me they had no choice, that the family was struggling financially. It was necessary, they said. We did it for all of us. But their explanations were hollow, their voices laced with something I couldn't quite place. I ran my fingers over the polished mahogany desk, pulling open drawers, searching for something, anything, to prove that this wasn't real, that this was some kind of mistake. And then I found it, a single envelope, hidden beneath a stack of old documents. My name was scrawled in my grandfather's unmistakable handwriting. My breath caught as I tore it open. Matthew. If you are reading this, then something has gone terribly wrong. I always feared that greed would tear this family apart. There is something you need to see. Go to the garden, the third stone from the fountain. Dig beneath it. You will find what you need. My skin prickled. My grandfather had never been a man of paranoia. If he had left me this message, it meant he knew something was coming. A sudden creak echoed behind me. I turned sharply. Kaden stood in the doorway, arms crossed, his face unreadable. What are you doing here? I slid the letter into my pocket. Shouldn't I be asking you the same thing? My voice was calm, but my heart pounded. Kaden exhaled heavily. I came to make sure you weren't going to do something stupid. I took a slow step toward him. Like what? Fight for what's mine. His jaw tightened. Just let it go, Matthew. A sharp, bitter laugh escaped me. Let it go. Grandfather left this house to me. And you, our mother, took it away. Kaden looked away. You don't understand. It's not that simple. I stepped past him, brushing his shoulder. We'll see about that. Without another word, I strode toward the garden, gripping the letter in my pocket like a lifeline. At the designated spot in the garden, I dug up a small box, and opening it, I pulled out a sealed envelope. On the envelope was written in my grandfather's handwriting, Matthew, open the envelope after you figure it out for yourself. I sat in Cora Stevens' office, gripping the armrests of the chair while she looked through the paperwork with the experienced eye of a lawyer. Matthew, she finally said, lifting her gaze to meet mine. This sale isn't just unethical, it's illegal. My heart pounded. Illegal? She nodded, tapping a clause on the contract. Your grandfather was meticulous. This house couldn't be sold without your explicit, written consent. And yet, she slid a paper toward me. My name was at the bottom, in ink, my signature. Only, I had never signed anything. A chill ran through me. Someone forged my signature. Cora's lips pressed into a firm line. We need to act fast. If this was fraud, the entire sale can be overturned, but we have to prove it. The buyer, Charlie Butler. He'll want answers too. Before I could respond, her assistant knocked and stepped in, pale-faced. Miss Stevens, Charlie Butler is here, and he looks furious. The door swung open, and a broad-shouldered man in a tailored suit stormed in, his face twisted in barely controlled rage. Would someone care to explain why I just found out the house I bought might not be legally mine? His glare settled on me. You're Matthew Caldwell. I stood, meeting his gaze. Yes, and I didn't agree to sell my grandfather's house. Charlie exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over his jaw. Then who the hell did I give my money to? Cora interjected smoothly. We believe Matthew's family committed fraud, forging his signature. If that's the case, the sale is void. Charlie's expression darkened. You'd better prove it, because I don't take well to being swindled. As he spoke, My phone buzzed with a new email notification. My blood ran cold. The subject line read, "You should have stayed quiet." My hands clenched into fists. This wasn't just about the house anymore. Someone didn't want me digging further. The walls of betrayal were closing in, suffocating me. I sat in my apartment, staring at the email forwarded by Cora, one that changed everything. It was from Charlie Butler's legal team, containing a thread of messages between my mother and the real estate agent. "We'll move forward once the boy is out of the way. He won't fight if he doesn't know." I gritted my teeth. They had planned this for months. A knock at the door yanked me from my thoughts. I opened it to find my sister Liliana, her face pale and tense. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "You need to stop this, Matthew," she said, voice tight. I folded my arms. "Stop what? Trying to fix what you all ruined?" She hesitated, then sighed. "You don't understand. Mom and Dad planned to sell my house behind my back." "Yeah, I do understand," I snapped, shoving my phone toward her. "Care to explain this?" Liliana's eyes darted across the screen before she swallowed hard. "It's complicated." "Uncomplicated," I said coldly. She hesitated before whispering, "The business is failing, Matthew. Mom and Dad are desperate. They needed money fast, and the house sale was the easiest way." The weight of her words hit like a punch to the gut. "So you all just decided to screw me over?" Liliana shook her head. "Kaden handled the papers. I didn't know he'd forge your signature." I stepped back as realization dawned. "Kaden forged it." She nodded, avoiding my eyes. "He said we had no choice." A sickening dread settled in my stomach. My own brother had committed fraud against me. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A new message, no sender. "There are secrets in that house. Let it go or you'll regret it." I looked up at Liliana, my voice turning to steel. What the hell is really going on? Her face turned ghostly white. And in that moment I knew this wasn't just about money anymore. I stormed into my parents' house, my mind a whirlwind of fury and disbelief. The forged signature, the secret emails, the veiled threats. It was all too much. Liliana followed close behind, her silence heavier than the betrayal itself. Kaden was in the living room, nursing a glass of whiskey, his legs casually crossed. The moment he saw me, his smirk faltered. "You lied to me," I growled. He exhaled, setting his glass down. "Matthew, listen." "No, you listen." I pulled out my phone and played the recording Cora had sent me, his voice cold and calculated, discussing the forgery with the real estate agent. Kaden's jaw clenched. "Damn it, Matthew. You don't understand." "Then explain," I said, barely keeping my voice steady. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration flashing in his eyes. "The company is collapsing. Mom and Dad are drowning in debt. If we didn't get the money, they would have lost everything. I did what I had to do." I shook my head in disgust. "You stole from me. You committed fraud." Kaden stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "And what would you have done? Let the company sink? Let our parents end up with nothing? They did this to themselves," I snapped. "And now you've dragged me into it?" Liliana cleared her throat. "There's something else," she murmured. Kaden shot her a glare, but she pressed on. "The company, it's under federal investigation. Financial fraud." I froze. "What?" She swallowed. "They've been cooking the books for years. Moving money. Hiding losses. The authorities are closing in." Kaden slammed his fist against the table. "You weren't supposed to tell him." "Are you kidding me?" I stepped toward him. "You didn't just forge my signature. You knew the whole business was a fraud." Kaden's breathing was ragged, his composure slipping. "It's complicated." The dimly lit hotel corridor smelled of stale coffee and expensive cologne. Liliana and I crouched outside the conference room, my phone recording every whispered word inside. Our parents' voices were tense, laced with desperation. "The house is gone. We have no choice," my mother hissed. "We have to get the paintings before Matthew does." My heart slammed against my ribs. "Paintings?" Kaden's voice followed. $3.5 million, hidden under the floorboards. "If we can move them before the authorities freeze our assets, we'll be safe." Liliana's nails dug into my arm, They lied to us too, she whispered. They never wanted to save the company. They wanted to save themselves. I had heard enough. I stood abruptly, shoving the door open. My parents froze, their faces draining of color. Looking for these. I held up my phone, the recording still playing. My mother's expression twisted. Matthew, you don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. I cut in. You forged my name. Sold my house. And now you're trying to smuggle stolen art? My father lunged toward me, but before he could snatch my phone, the doors burst open. Police, hands where we can see them. Officers swarmed the room. My parents paled as handcuffs clicked shut around their wrists. Kaden barely struggled, shoulders slumping in surrender. As they were led away, my mother turned to me, eyes filled with something unreadable. You were never supposed to find out. I met her gaze cold and unwavering, but I did. Weeks later, the house was mine again. The hidden paintings, stolen decades ago, were returned to their rightful owners. As I stood in the garden, I opened the last letter from my grandfather. Matthew, if you're reading this, the truth has come to light. I always knew you'd do the right thing. This house, this legacy, it was never about money. It was about family. I hope one day you'll find one worthy of calling your own. I exhaled, the weight of the past finally lifting. Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.